It's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, my asexual life. This is a place to be for educating about asexuality, all things asexual, and I share my asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. If you haven't already subscribed, please hit the great big subscribe button below right here, right now. Please hit that bell icon to get notified of every time I go live right now or post a new video. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up as we're going along if you're enjoying the content, if you'll find it useful, helpful, insightful in any way, shape or form. Now, if you didn't know who I am Sandra Bellamy, author of this beautiful book, Asexual Perspectives, 47 Asexual Stories, Love, Life and Sex, a celebration of asexual diversity. I'm also the founder of Asexualise.com, the founder of Asexualise Academy, and the author of this other amazing book called Fibromyalgia Self-Help Handbook, How to Manage Fibromyalgia to Have Less Pain, More Energy and Feel Happier, like a superhero rock star. So let's get into tonight's episode. Don't forget, as we're going along, if you like this episode at all, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit that bell icon so you do get notified of when I go live like now. But don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you find the content useful, helpful, insightful in any way, shape or form. So today is a mental health episode, so a little bit different to what I usually do. And today I want to talk about what are triggers and what can we do about them. So you'll have to excuse my voice a little. So last night you might have noticed I didn't live stream because I wasn't feeling very well and my throat's been a bit sore, so I'm not sure if I'm getting a bit poorly again, but I've had some chill out time watching some movies today, so I wasn't on the stream last night because I was feeling ill and I did have a trigger, so that is relevant to this episode. So what are triggers, right? Triggers are things people say or do that tend to provoke an extreme emotional reaction or response from you. They are often dealt with as part of therapy. So if you see a therapist and you've done anything like cognitive behavioral therapy, for example, they will usually address triggers in that. So in the past, I've had a lot of counseling, as you probably know if you watch my previous videos. I have had depression in the past. I freed myself finally in 2012. And I had depression throughout my childhood a lot and adulthood. So it's very, very difficult. I've had a lot of counselling and I've had both cognitive analytical therapy and cognitive behavioural therapy. Now, there's no shame in seeing a therapist. I think talking therapies are one of the best forms of medicine you can get, you know, especially if you're lonely and feel you can't talk to anyone, no one understands you. You know, talking about your problems and issues and trying to help yourself by getting some help is one of the best things you can do. Obviously, if your therapist doesn't understand you either, makes things awkward or difficult for you, then, you know, that means you probably likely need to get a new therapist, or maybe therapy isn't so good for you. Hi, Ralph. Ralph says, I have PTSD, so I know triggers. And hi, Sandra. Oh, thank you. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I'm a bit nasally again today. I'm not sure if I'm getting a bit poorly, but I was triggered yesterday. So obviously that might have caused me to feel a bit poorly anyway. But I woke up with a sore throat yesterday morning anyway, before I even got triggered. So I'm glad. I mean, I'm not glad you know about triggers, Ralph, in the sense I wish you not to have them, but I'm glad that you understand where I'm coming from. So it's really nice of you to be here. Thank you so much. So just to explain a little bit more about triggers, because I know some other asexuals who have triggers as well. There tends to be, I'm very stereotyping here, there tends to be two main type of people who trigger other people. One is the really bad type of person, if you like, the narcissist, the abuser, the mind manipulator, and they will specifically say things to trigger a reaction from you on purpose, maybe to make fun of you, to belittle you, to put you down, to make you feel small, to get you to do what they specifically want. and to make you feel really, really bad about yourself. Now, I've had these type of people in the past. In my past, I've had them. You know, the ones where they think it's funny. You know, they'll trigger you on purpose. Maybe you're a sensitive person. I can be a very sensitive person. And they say something on purpose to you, knowing that you're very sensitive about this topic. And then they find it really funny when you react like emotionally, you get upset. They find it hilarious. They think it, you know, they're like, I sort of triggered you, you know, like, you know, you can't control yourself. And that's just plain nastiness, manipulation. And, you know, quite frankly, those people are not good people. You know, they haven't got your interests at heart. They're doing it maliciously with intent to cause some sort of reaction in you for their own pleasure, satisfaction, or to get their own way with you in some way, shape, or form. So that's the type of person that, you know, you need to look out for and be very aware of these people. And especially if you're in a relationship. I've been in a relationship in the past where, you know, a person tried to trigger me on purpose to make out then that I'm the really bad person because I reacted a certain way. They feel they fine, you know, and that then they try and justify their abusive behavior by the fact that you're worse than them because they've really highly triggered you on purpose. I mean, the best thing to do in a relationship like that is to obviously leave them, and it's not always easy. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it's easier said than done. And especially if you're financially reliant on them. That's why I always say it's best if you can to live in separate places, or at least make sure you've got enough money that you can move out if you do go to live with someone. I mean, when I was with the I had this I don't even know if it was a date or not. I met up with this young guy recently, and he's like, "Why wouldn't you want to live with someone?" And I said, "Well, because in the one, I mean, one, I explained all the different type of lifestyle I live, and I think he got it in the end that my lifestyle's really not suited to live with someone anyway. I live a backwards life. I work in the night, and it's really not suitable." But not only that, I did mention to him that in the past, you know, I ended up with a person who ended up not being good for me. I ended up being financially reliant on them, and I couldn't move out, so the abuse just carried on. And you know, that's why I always personally think it's better to live in separate places, at least for a significant amount of time before you move in with each other. I mean, I knew the guy who, you know, I knew one of the guys I was with for 8 months before I moved in with him. I didn't move in with him immediately. I was friends with him for 8 months beforehand. So, you know, but people do change. You know, I had a friend who got married and her husband ended up being abusive after over a couple of years. So you never know. So you've got to err on the side of caution. You've got to really watch these people if you think you're being manipulated or abused. Now you get the other type of person that never meant to trigger you, never caused any harm, never did anything intentional, malicious. They probably didn't even realize what they said would ever trigger you because it just seems like a normal conversation and something that they're just talking about normally. And they you know, they're very kind of innocent in the fact they triggered you. They didn't do it on purpose. You're triggered, and really it's kind of like your problem in the sense that, you know, someone triggered you, but it's not their fault. You know, they're not trying to do it maliciously. They never intended to trigger you. You know, they wouldn't cause harm to you normally. They've not got a malicious bone in their body, but it's something they said that may have evoked a past memory or something that happened to you, past traumatic event. Like Ralph said, Ralph's had post-traumatic stress disorder. So triggers do things people say that may be very innocent in the moment can trigger you to have this kind of difficult response. Now you may respond to them, right, or you know, to the trigger directly by responding in a difficult manner, or irate manner, without thinking manner, or you may choose not to. Now what I tend to do with triggers, if it's someone who I know's not got a malicious bone in their body, never had any intention to trigger me on purpose or anything like that, I will actually say to them, I'm triggered now. I feel triggered, you know? And it's best in those scenarios to actually understand that it's not, it can be sounds and smells too. Ah, right, Ralph. Yes, sounds. I really understand the sounds. So I've had, yeah, I mean, when I had physical abuse and stuff like that, and when I lived in places in the past where there were bad people smashing down doors and stuff, the first place I ever went to live was really bad house. I moved out of home. It was horrible. And I went to live, and there was this guy literally trying to literally beat down the door with his shoe, you know, with all his weight on it. Because the house I moved into with a guy, it wasn't any good anyway. But I think some of the people in the house were worse than him, and he was trying to beat down the door for drugs basically, and literally he wouldn't let up. And the room I was in was right next to this door, and for years and years, I totally agree with you, Ralph. For years and years, I had this noise echoing, and every time I would hear anything like this noise, it would just make me so frightened. Now, luckily, I haven't really heard that noise for a while, but sometimes I do still hear similar noises, you know, and I just can't stand it. It frightens the heck out of me, you know, if there's anything like that noise, or any type of situation where I feel backed into a corner as well in certain circumstances, you know, where I feel it's dangerous and I've got to get out of there. So yeah, so I know exactly what you mean, Ralph. I mean, I had really bad problems with that. It's significantly gone away now, but if there's any noise that comes back like it, then, you know, like a thump or anything like that, then I can't stand it. It really does trigger me, and it reminds me, you know, but I've got a lot better in the last year over that. I think I've got a lot better. But yeah, could still do it. So yeah, I totally agree with you, Ralph. And you know, and if it's someone who's not done it intentional, I mean, I tend to put the onus on myself, you know, realize that it's me with the problem. It's not really them. They didn't mean to do it. They don't do it maliciously. There's no intent. They probably even didn't know what they said would ever trigger you, you know. And so, you know, you've really got to look at the fact that it's your problem to deal with, right? Having said that, obviously you may want to discuss it if you feel comfortable with the person, but if you really think it's your problem, then you've kind of got to find ways of dealing with it. And what I find most effective, especially if it's with a good friend that's done it by accident, is to literally say to them, look, I feel triggered right now. I need some time on my own. I just want to be by myself for it, because I don't want to react to them badly, you know? I don't want to start shouting. I don't tend to shout these days. I mean, obviously I talk loud on this channel, but there's a difference between talking loud and shouting. If you heard me shouting, it'd be 10 times louder. But you know what I mean? But I don't want to get irate or narky or sarcastic or anything like that. I don't want to bring out any bad traits in me just because this person's accidentally triggered me, because really it's my problem to deal with. That they're not in my past. This is a thing from the past. Things more than one thing really. It's kind of triggered some of my past issues coming up, and that's been hard to deal with. So I've just said to them that I feel triggered at the moment. I'm not comfortable with, I kind of partly said what it's about. I'm not comfortable with this and this, and that therefore I want to spend some time on my own alone. Mine's a lot better than it used to be. I do grounding as I get flashbacks too. What's grounding, Ralph? Is that for post-traumatic stress disorder? I don't know if I've heard of grounding. Sounds familiar, but I can't remember what it is or if I actually know it. But yeah, I mean, I can remember a lot of my past. I mean, it doesn't really help that I talk about my ex on here a lot, to be honest, because I get a lot of flashbacks about that, a lot of dreams about him, and you know, I don't want to dream that. But yeah, but that's good. That it's better than normal, better than it used to be for you as well, because it is really difficult, you know. And I'm very aware of myself, and that it's not really someone else's problem and fault, because they didn't do it on purpose. Like I said, the people that don't do these things on purpose, it's not their fault. It's just me that has to deal with it from my past. And sadly, you know, sometimes the majority of us, to be honest, have triggers usually. And when you have a relationship as well, because I watch a lot of dating relationship coaching, they say, you know, when you actually get into a relationship, you're going to be most likely to be triggered, because you're going to bring up stuff that you have to maybe change in yourself or deal with from the past. That's very difficult. And you might both trigger each other as well. So that's why in a relationship it can be difficult. But obviously I'm not in a relationship. I don't intend to get one in a while either, because I'm not interested in that at the moment. I'm interested in looking after me for a change. But yeah, I wasn't in a very good way last night. I was partly, you know, my throat's not being great, and then I was triggered, and I just, you know, I wasn't feeling very good, to be honest. So I know I normally do my streams, but I was just a bit emotional. So you take yourself back to normal time from your flashback by thinking yourself back to this time. Right, okay. All right. I guess maybe I don't have total flashbacks then, because when I flashbacks, I actually can remember everything rather than, but you know what I mean? I can remember all my past. I don't block it out. Do you know what I mean? So maybe I don't have flashbacks because I remember it all, but I know I'm in this time as well. I never know that I'm not in this time. So maybe I don't actually have flashbacks. Maybe I just remember, which is maybe different. Maybe I didn't really understand the full concept of flashback. But yeah, so yeah, because I was aware that I'm in normal time, but you know, memories can be very painful sometimes, and I'm aware of my I'm aware of my bad habits in the past as well to do with certain triggers. And sometimes, you know, well, a lot of the time you have to consciously stop yourself doing things. You know, like I'm aware of how I used to react in certain situations in the past. So I've stopped reacting that way to some things, but I still remember how I used to react and why I used to react like that and the reason for it. So I find that very difficult sometimes. I find because it's not something I can tell people and talk to people about that because it's not a good thing about me, you know. And I've changed and I've purposely changed, but I can still remember my behavior. I can still remember the habit and I can still remember why I did it. And that's one of the worst things when you can remember why you did it. You're kind of justifying your own bad habit behavior. So it's like I can still remember now, but I'm not in that pattern anymore, and I've got out of that behaviour, which is, you know, bad behaviour on my part. I'm not going to go into it on this channel, but do you know what I mean? But there is some things that I wasn't great about in the past. You know, it was really, I know why, because of what happened to me, but it's not good. But I have to stop myself sometimes, jeopardising myself. Flashbacks to a previous trauma years ago, hence PTSD. I get triggered, so double whammy. Oh well, but I think about trauma years ago, like when I was 6. Do you know what I mean? I can remember, well, for me, I can fully remember everything, if you know what I mean. Sometimes I completely forget, and then all of a sudden I remember something. Like, for example, when I'm doing the Asexual Guide to Sex book, I can remember all the different sex stuff I did with my ex, which is really weird. That has all come back quite a bit of it, and I'm like, oh, damn, because I need it to write the book, really. But it's kind of like I'm thinking about things that I didn't really remember before, like the feeling of having sex, which is kind of weird as an asexual person. Do you know what I mean? Like thinking back, like what it felt like, what was for the book, like what was good about it, what was not good about it, as a matter of fact, rather than, you know, just completely slating sex off completely. If you know what I mean. You know, I've got to be a bit more objectional in the Asexual Guide to Sex book. So um so yeah, so I remember kind of all my traumas if I think about them or if I do something. So, but I haven't heard when you say grounding, I already know I'm in this. Maybe it's different for me because I already know I'm in this present moment, but I think back to the past and my brain goes back to the past and then I have to stop it because otherwise, you know what it's like. It goes in a vicious circle, doesn't it? It goes round and round and round and you just can't stop it. So, I mean, my triggers are mostly to do with like past abuse and relationships, past relationships, um, and past friendships that weren't good for me or healthy, you know? A past boyfriend, stuff past boyfriends said to me, which I really hated and made me really upset. You know, if anyone says anything that might be like that, it just triggers me. Or anything that I was told in my childhood that I wasn't good. Do you know what I mean? It just triggers all that bad memory back, and so, you know, I do think the best thing to do is try and keep working on triggers as much as possible to limit them as much as possible. A lot of triggers are to do with fears, really. Mine was when I was 12, sexual abuse. Yeah, that's really horrible, Ralph. Yeah, you told me about that, didn't you? In private. Yeah, it's really horrible. I think it's good that you said that on this channel, though, in the sense it's good that people know it doesn't just happen to women, it happens to guys as well. Um, yeah, I mean, I had sexual abuse, as you know, when I was 15. I think you've read my Asexual Perspectives book, haven't you? It talks about that in there. when I was 15 years old. I had it another time as well, which I'll be talking about possibly in my Asexual Guide to Sex book. I don't know. I think I might be talking about it then. I haven't really talked about that other one. And then when I was 6, I had that boyfriend doing stuff that I was like pressurized into doing at 6 years old. So yeah, and that's quite very young, isn't it? But yeah, it's horrible. Sexual abuse is very horrible. But I mean, I had all my sexual relationships after the abuse when I was 15, so it didn't stop me having sex, because I absolutely hate it when people are like, oh, so you've been abused, so that's why you're asexual. It's like, no, I'm not asexual for that reason. I had sex after my abuse. I just don't like sex. I'm not interested in it. Don't want to have it again. I did it because I thought I had to in the past. I did it because that's what's seen as normal by society, and it's like the done thing, and it's like, but, you know, I didn't have it as much as other people would, usually. Sometimes 2 or 3 months without it. And one of my exes I was with for nearly 7 years, we must have had about 3 times the whole time we were together. It's horrible, but we are survivors. Yeah, Ralph, we are survivors, and we have to thank our lucky stars for that. Do you know what I mean? Mine could have been a lot worse. I mean, I could have got pregnant. I had to stop him getting me pregnant, basically. So the next woman he did that to, he got the guy when I was 15, he got pregnant because my family knew the family who he was friends with. That's how I met him. I met him at basically a neighbour's barbecue. So yeah, but my mum talked to the neighbour's mum, and she said, "Oh yeah, he's got a new girlfriend." That was after he finished with me, and she's pregnant. That wasn't long after me. I thought, thank God that wasn't me, you know? So I've never wanted a kid since I was 15. And I especially wouldn't have wanted a kid with him. I didn't love him, actually. I fancied him, but I didn't love him. That's one of the people I've been with in my life that I didn't actually love. I fancied him, but I had low self-esteem back then. Really low self-esteem. And I trusted guys until that moment. Well, obviously I had the incident when I was 6, which wasn't good. But I kind of like, he started going on about, oh, I go out clubbing, and I didn't really think that he was seeing any women there. But I guess 16 years old when I really stopped trusting guys in relationships, because that's when the guy I was with, who pressurized me into having sex for the first time, he then after 6 months dumped me anyway and told me about these women he'd been looking at while I'd been stood with him, right next to him. I hate that. You see, that's a major trigger for me. You know, like if I'm with a guy, him going around saying, oh, I'm attracted to other women while I'm with him, it's just a major trigger, because obviously this guy who pressurized me into having sex, you know, who I lost my virginity to basically at 16, you know, he was there, he split up with me and then made it perfectly clear that he'd been looking at other women, and one of them was stood right next to me at the bus stop, and I'm sweet and innocent, never even knew that. I didn't even think he'd be going around looking at other women. And then something else he did make sense when this guy got off the bus and was chasing him for looking at his woman, and he left me in the middle of the city with this guy chasing me. And at that time, this was in Exeter, but I didn't live in Exeter then. I lived with my parents. I hardly ever been to Exeter, and he just left me at night. God, because this guy was running after him, and it all made sense afterwards that he'd been looking at other women, but I just hate it. I think if you like someone, you should just be interested in them. I know I'm quite old-fashioned like that, but it's just horrible. So that's a major trigger for me, you know? And another one of my exes, the guy I was with for a long time, he was then started telling me about, one of these pop stars that he'd been masturbating to while I'd been out working or whatever. I just hate all that type of thing. That's why I'm really old-fashioned now. I prefer, obviously, guys are going to find other women attractive, but I just prefer, like, if you're into me, be into me. Stop looking around at everyone else. Do you know what I mean? In that way, because it's just a major trigger. But obviously, I do realise that there's more attractive women than me in the world, and they are going to find other girls attractive. But I do find it difficult. It's a major, major trigger because of all these different things that's gone on. Ralph, I've often battled with low self-esteem, but now I'm just great. Yeah, you're doing really well, Ralph. I'm really proud of you. I'm really proud of you. It's very difficult when you've got a lot of past stuff that triggers you. I mean, I've had a lot. I mean, obviously, I was depressed for years, and I've had a lot of trauma, which is why I've got fibromyalgia, to be perfectly honest with you. Well, you know, because you've got my fibro book. You know, that's why I've got it, because of all the trauma I've been through, all the different emotional, physical, mental, sexual, had the whole lot. Do you know what I mean? And I've had accidents, so that's why I've got fibromyalgia. It's just the way it is. My body's full of trauma through all those years, you know, and you have to, like, as much as possible, deplete, delete, get rid of as much trauma as possible, both currently and previously. But, you know, it's not always that easy, and you can't change your past. You can only change how you react to it, deal with it, and try and learn. But it's not always easy. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you just get triggered, and like last night, I just got triggered by someone who didn't mean to trigger me at all. I just got really upset, and I thought, I've just got to have some time out. And I wasn't really in a fit state to do my channel. My throat was really sore, and I just thought, you know, people understand, especially if I talk about triggers tonight. I thought it's a good topic to cover, to explain why I was off last night. And also, you know, a lot of asexuals, they do have mental health issues, and don't really talk that much about mental health, you know. Maybe I should do some more videos on mental health. I mean, one of my videos triggered someone the other day, and I didn't mean it to. It's very difficult doing this channel where I cover all across the asexual spectrum, because of course some sex repulsed asexuals, they're going to get very triggered by anything that's got any content when I'm talking about sex. Some of them will, not all of them. Some of them are not that fussed. They're just repulsed themselves. But other ones, you know, they get triggered. And I don't, you know, I'm not doing this show to trigger people or purposely hurt anyone. I'm trying to do it for the opposite, to help all asexuals across the spectrum. And it's very difficult, because some asexuals are sex repulsed and hate sex, and, you know, like, why the heck are you even talking about it? And then other ones are like, thank you for talking about it, because I feel like there's something wrong with me if I have sex in a relationship, because I'm with a sexual person, for example, and I want some advice and help from you, you know. And so what the video that was a trigger for someone in one of my groups, you know, was the video about triggers are difficult as we're all different. Yeah, Ralph, exactly. You know, and I can't, you know, if I worried about every single person I might upset, I know it sounds a bit like insensitive maybe, but if I worried about every single person upset, I would never do any videos, because I'm sure probably a lot of my videos, there's one person in the world that doesn't like them. Do you know what I mean? For whatever reason. But I don't even think they've watched the whole video, because the way they were talking was not actually the point of the video. So it was a video where I said, if you're an asexual who's going to have sex, then have it before you get married, which I know is a very, very, very controversial thing to say anyway. I know a lot of people disagree with me. Probably half of the world will disagree with me. But I needed to say it based on my own experience, which is what I always share on this channel. You know, I'm not God. What I say doesn't have to be taken as gospel. What I say is not necessarily right for everyone. What I say isn't the be all and end all and you've got to do it. I just say things based on my own personal experience to try and save someone having some pain. You know, and the video was about, if you're an asexual who's going to have sex, I'd highly recommend that basically you have it before marriage, because if you get into a situation where you get married to a person and you're highly sexually incompatible, that can lead to a lot of trauma and abuse. Do you know what I mean? I mean, if I'd have married, I mean, I was engaged years ago, which a lot of people don't even know, but if I'd have married that person, I mean, that was one of the guys I was with for a long time who had an affair. He was with in the end, he ended up being with he was supposed to be working, and instead he was seeing this woman with a kid. Do you know what I mean? And it's just it was just horrible. And so, you know, if I'd have married him, just think about that. You know, that was a guy I had like sex 3 times with in about 7 years. I can't read that, Woody, sorry. But welcome to this channel anyway. So yeah, it's just like, you know, where was I? I can't remember what I was talking about now. That's the thing when you have triggers, you try and forget them again, don't you? So yeah, I just was saying, what was I saying? I don't even know what I was saying. But you know, it's very, triggers very, oh yeah, I was talking about the person I triggered. So in the video, what I meant, you know, what I was saying is, if you're an asexual that's going to have sex anyway, because some asexuals, they're going to have sex whether I like it or not, whether I think they should or not, whether I agree with it or not. Do you know what I mean? It's really, you know, up to the individual asexual where they want to try sex, have it or not. And in the video I was saying, if you're going to have it, it's best to do it before you get married, because, you know, otherwise you can end up marrying the wrong person and being sexually incompatible and living a life of hell. And I still stand by what I said. You know, because I come from a Christian background, to be perfectly honest with you. My parents aren't strictly religious, like they don't go to church, but I come from a Christian background, and my parents don't agree with sex before marriage. I had to go against that, my upbringing, to be able to do what I think's right for me. And that was, you know, having sex before marriage. And I'm glad I didn't marry any of the guys in my past, because if I had, I'd been very, very miserable, and I'd have been very, very you know, I'd been like in prison, because I would have been chained contractually by marriage to a person that was no good for me. And in that video, I was also saying it's not just about sexual intercourse, it's about sexual acts as well. Like some asexuals may end up being with sexuals and they both agree not to have sex, but then they might, like, the sexual might still want to do loads of sexual acts that the asexual doesn't want to do. You know, and so it's best to, if they're going to do some sexual acts or have sex, it's best to try all this out before they get married, to see if they're compatible physically, because if they're not, it's going to be hell. Do you know what I mean? So it's an if they're going to have it anyway, not they've got to have sex anyway. I don't think any asexuals to have sex if they don't want it, don't like it, don't need it, and don't, you know, they just don't want to have it. I don't believe they should have it. I think any asexuals that are virgins are great. I'm really happy they've kept that for themselves. And this particular person was triggered because they said, "Oh, I'm fed up with this shit advice of people saying when I should and shouldn't have sex, when and where I shouldn't have sex." But I wasn't a video saying that they should have sex. It was a video saying to the people, the asexuals, that, you know, like the ones that are gonna have sex anyway, to make sure that you know, that they do that before marriage, you know. And even if you're religious, I know it's that, you know, I know loads of religious people that hate me for saying that, and that's fine, they can hate me all they like, but, you know, I'm trying to save someone some abuse. You know, I had a person messaging me, like I do get quite a lot of private messages, and this one woman, she's married to a sexual person, she's asexual, and she's like, "Sandra, how can I stop my husband abusing me, because he wants sex all the time and I hate it? How can I stop this?" I mean, how am I supposed to answer a question like that? I can't actually stop it, can I? And she's married to him. She chose to marry him. Do you know what I mean? Probably, well, she probably had an arranged marriage, I think, from her culture. You know, but what am I supposed to do? You know, how can I help that person? Do you know what I mean? I don't do religion, laughed out loud. Oh, well done, Ralph. Yeah, I mean, the problem I have with religion is if you put it before yourself. Like, people are like, "Well, I can't have sex before marriage because of my religion." To me, that's putting religion before yourself, and you should put yourself before yourself. Your safety and health and well-being is more important than anything in the world. Absolutely anything. And of course, a lot of religious people who are really into God would probably disagree with me that God comes first. But unless you're alive, well and happy, you can't even talk to God. You can't even speak to him or have him in your life if you're dead, or half hanging, you know, in a heap and unconscious, or whatever you are, or absolutely just hurting all over your body from abuse. Do you know what I'm saying? It's all in the mind. You know what I mean? You've got to put yourself first. I believe everyone should put themselves first. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think God is going to punish someone for putting themselves first, to be quite frank. And I know loads of people will probably have a go at me saying, "Well, it's really bad. It's like lust, and you shouldn't do that. It's bad against God and all the rest of it." Well, it's up to you what you believe. And if you believe that, you believe it. I'm not going to try and change you otherwise. But personally, I think that people should put themselves first before anything or anyone, to look after themselves as number one, because if you can't look after yourself, who else is going to look after you? Do you know what I mean? It's a tough world sometimes, you know, and you've got to look after yourself, you know. And so when people put religion before themselves, the teddy in the sky isn't real. What teddy in the sky? Oh, do you mean God's a teddy? Well, I do believe in God, actually, but I believe in a different thing. Do you know what I mean? I believe in, I just like talk like a buddy to him whenever I feel like it. It's because I've nearly died a few times. Well, I could have died because I've had quite a few accidents. So yeah, that's why I believe in him. But I'm more spiritual than religious, and I don't believe in the Holy Spirit. And I talk directly to God, and Jesus is just sat there. I don't speak to Jesus directly at all. So I'm very different. I don't follow traditional religious stuff. It's only because I've had several accidents and I could have died, and so I think there is something there. And I'm very intuitive. And I do talk to like going, yeah, I'm very intuitive as well, so that's good. But I believe in spirituality and God together, which is very bizarre because most people think it's one or the other. And I don't see how God and the Big Bang can't both go together, which again is completely opposite, meant to be the opposite of each other. But there you go. I kind of like, but I'm not strictly religious. I mean, I don't read the Bible, I don't go to church and stuff like that. So in the past, when I did go to church years ago, youth club, I found there's quite a lot of hypocrites there. Again, I'll probably get told off for saying this, like, how can you say there's hypocrites in church? Because I just said it. So you know what I mean? I honestly believe you should put yourself first. I think far too many people get married because of their religion, culture and stuff, and they put their culture and religion before themselves and their own health and well-being, and then they end up in situations which are really bad for them. I'm not saying every time it's bad for them. Some people get married and it works out really well. My parents have been married 50 years, 50 years. They don't believe in sex before marriage. It worked out for them. So, you know, it worked out for my own parents, my own flesh and blood. So I can't say it doesn't work for everyone, because that would just be ridiculous, you know. So it did work for them. But they are sexual. They're heterosexual. They're definitely not asexual. They've really told me that. So I think when it's an asexual person, particularly, and if you're going to be with a sexual person, you really, really do need to try that out beforehand if you're going to do it anyway, regardless of what anyone else says. Do you know what I mean? If you're an asexual, I really want to try this at least once. And I'm not sure whether I want to do these sexual acts or those sexual acts. I'd really like to try out. I just urge people to do that before, because I just don't want a situation like, I feel sorry for those in arranged marriages. Yeah, I do, Ralph. I feel really sorry for those in arranged marriages. I wish they would just literally say, look, I'm not interested in sex. And I did come across an article where some people in India, for example, now they're being encouraged to actually say to their parents, look, I'm asexual, I don't like sex, so if you're going to arrange a marriage for me, please can you arrange a marriage for me with another asexual? But I think they're few and far between, because most of the asexuality is still seen as, you know, kind of like taboo. So, you know, and that I think that's what that woman was. As far as I know, she had an arranged marriage. The one who messaged me saying, you know, my husband wants sex, you know, all the time, and it's like, you know, I'm being abused. Basically, how can I stop him abusing me? Because if you're an asexual that doesn't want sex and your partner wants it all the time, it's basically abuse. That's how it feels. Do you know what I mean? I'm so lucky I have Sophie. I have none of these sexual worries. Yeah, you are really lucky to have Sophie, Ralph. You know, you are really lucky to have Sophie. I'm really happy for you. It is really good that you found a good person like that. Do you know what I mean? They're few and far between. I don't think it's impossible. They are few and far between. I mean, I won't get married because I don't want to. I used to be a marriage type of person, but for me, I don't think it's a good idea. I really don't think it's a good idea. Because I get attracted to young foreign guys anyway, and a lot of them like sex, marriage, and kids. And the asexual ones, though, a lot of them want marriage still, but I just don't think it's a good idea for me personally. Do you know what I mean? I think people are too changeable. I think once you marry a foreign guy, a lot of them unfortunately end up not being exactly what they say they are. They expect you to be a housewife, cooker, cleaner upper, you know, some of them have sex. And I just, you know, I'm not interested in that. So, you know, unless I get a really genuine asexual guy, but I don't want marriage. I don't like the whole thing. I know you're engaged to Sophie. I think you're really good there. And I know my friend John, he got married to his asexual partner last year. And I think that, well, you know, for some people marriage does work well, but personally for me, I don't like the idea. You like your own space? Yeah, I like my own space. I'm very independent. With all my past experience tells me don't get married. I don't like wearing jewelry. I feel chained down. Like, you'll notice I hardly ever wear jewelry because I feel chained down by wearing rings and stuff. I like wearing ring of crate. I've got one ring I bought myself. So that's like my marriage ring to myself. I don't wear it very often, but it's very beautiful. Handmade. It was like in the shop and it's perfect for me. There's not another one like it, I don't think, in the world. It was just like it was made for someone and they didn't want it in the end. And I bought it years ago when I split up with my ex. I bought it for myself, or when he split up with me. I bought it for myself. It's beautiful. I love it. and so I will wear that occasionally, you know. But I get dermatitis on my hands anyway, so jewelry just causes me issues a lot of the time. But I don't like the. I did wear a ring years ago, like an engagement ring, but I just felt chained. I felt like I was chained. It was horrible. I don't even know if I'm going to be suitable ever to be in a relationship, to be honest. At the moment, I'm thinking, no, Sandra, I just want, you know, I'm not actively pursuing a relationship anymore at the moment. I've decided to have a break from that for a while, because I want to focus on my career. I got my Asexual Guide to Sex book, which is my main focus now. I just started working on that again yesterday. So that's really important to me to get that done now, because I got people waiting to buy it. I just want to, like take these next few months to really get that done and sorted and published. I think it's going to help a lot of people. I think it's really going to help a lot of people. But I mean, there's one person in my group that did agree. She said, and she's an asexual that's been married before, and she did say about, you can marry someone and all the hormones are flying around, and then you can be sexually incompatible, and it's really bad, and end up with someone who's no good for you. And she's actually got experience of that herself. So because she's got experience of it herself, she understands it. I think if you've got experience like I have, you just want to share it with the world. If people want to like take that on board, that's fine. If people don't, that's okay too. I'm not saying what I say is people have got to do or believe or agree with. I'm just saying my experience, because if it helps just one person to not end up in an abusive sexual relationship, all good and well. Do you know what I mean? Because getting messages like that, I mean, how can I actually help the person? I can't really do anything other than tell the person to tell their husband that just because they're married doesn't mean to say he owns her body, and if she doesn't want to have sex, she doesn't have to have it. And she's not having it. Do you know what I mean? But obviously he might go and have an affair, anything could happen. But at the end of the day, if she doesn't want to have sex, even if you're married, the guy doesn't own your body just because he's married. He might think he owns your body because you've got a contract of marriage, but it's a contract of marriage. It ain't contract of your body. He doesn't own your body. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the advice I gave her, that, he doesn't own your body. So if you don't want sex, then tell him. That's the best advice I can give you, that you don't want sex. And be prepared to stand up for that and walk away, basically. And I'd recommend getting a divorce, quite frankly, if that's happening. But it might be go against your culture and religion, but there's no way you should stay in a relationship where you're having sexual abuse, basically, because that person wants to have sex with you and you don't want. It's against your will, basically, and wishes. So that's the best advice I can give someone in that situation. There's not much I can do. But whether they do that, take that advice or not, it's not that easy, especially if you're in a culture that doesn't agree with divorce. There's quite a few foreign places and cultures that just don't agree with divorce either. It's very difficult to get a divorce, but it can be done. I mean, I have a Bangladesh person I know, and he got married, was an arranged marriage. He'd been seeing this woman online for 4 years, never actually met her, and then his mum arranged a marriage with him for someone else. He, like, less than a year. They'd only been together a few months, and the father of the girl who he got married to got him and her divorced very quickly. So, do you know what I mean? Like, so he was Bangladesh, and I know a guy who was asexual, who married a woman, and he was actually a homo asexual. He was a gay asexual. He's into guys. Because I met up with him, and he was telling me his personal story, and that for 5 years, I think he was married for 5 years, and he couldn't say anything, and then he couldn't take it anymore because he knew it was meant to be with a guy, not a woman. So he had to divorce and tell his parents, and they felt shameful of him, and he left the country and stuff like that. But he went back to them in the end, and to his family. So it worked out in the end, but it was a lot of problems. But sometimes you have to do it. Relationships between ace and sexual partners need to set boundaries. Exactly. The only problem, Ralph, is some people, when they get married, they change. And when you set the boundaries, they'll be like, well, I'm married to you now. Do it. Do you know what I mean? That's the problem I've got. When some people change, I'm not saying all people change, but some people do change. And they might say a load of codswallop. Do you know what I mean? Like load of rubbish. For example, I had this isn't like a marriage thing, but I know this guy wasn't marriage. But basically, the other day I got accepted to an Indian dating group in the UK, in dating Indian guys in the UK, specifically UK Indian guys, which is great. And I don't know when I applied for it. It was a long time ago. So I put a post up and said I was asexual. and looking for a serious relationship with an Indian guy, basically. And I thought I'll see what comes up. And there were 7 people, and one that messaged me, 7 Indian guys in the UK. And this one guy, he messaged me, and he knew what asexuality was without me explaining. He goes, oh, so basically you don't have sex then, ever, at all. And I'm like, no, that's right. So I thought this might be a good guy, because obviously he already understands what asexuality is. I don't have to explain it to him. So this is great, because obviously if he's carrying on messaging me, he must be understanding, right? Especially when he's basically told me that I don't, you know, so is it you don't want sex ever, and you know, acted like it's fine, and he understood. And so he was messaging me a bit, and then I said I want a living LAT, and he's like, what's an LAT? I said it's a living apart together relationship. And he hadn't really heard of that, and he stopped talking to me. I thought, yes, okay, because you probably want to live with someone, that's fine. And I hadn't heard from him for ages. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. I heard from him the next day. He said, what's a living apart together relationship? And LAT. And I had to explain it, because I just put LAT. So I explained what that was. And then I didn't hear from him for like quite a few days. And then yesterday he messaged me, oh, hello, gorgeous. I don't know if I still got a message actually, but it was hello, gorgeous. How are you doing? And it's like, I'm fine, thank you. I'm really busy working at the moment. He goes, oh, at this time of night. I'm like, yeah, I work when others are asleep usually. It's the best time to get things done. So anyway, he then started saying, oh, I'm in bed now. This is the guy that knew I didn't want sex. He said, oh, I'm in bed now and I wish you were here with me. Honestly, do you see what I mean? These people can lie their asses off. They can just make up bull. They can just pretend they understand you and even know what asexuality means, but not take you seriously. So he friend requested me in the beginning when we first started chatting. So I just unfriended him. I haven't blocked him yet, but it's ridiculous. I said to him, I'm asexual, not sexual. So I'm not interested in you in bed, you know, knowing about you in bed, basically. Do you know what I mean? So that's the problem, you know, unless you've got a really genuine sexual person. So really, I mean, it's like Eddie. Comes in the chat in here, you know, and he's got an asexual girlfriend. He's not asexual himself, you know, and he's one of the very rare breeds that really cares about his asexual partner and knows that he's not going to have sex, and he's all right with that, and he's happy, and he's even concerned about where he can and can't touch her. You know, I said, you know, he's got to really talk to her about that and find out and try things out, but let her know that, you know, if she doesn't want to do anything more than once, if she does try it, that's okay. But, you know, I mean, but, you know, sometimes with some sexuals, it doesn't work like that. Sometimes you try something, they might be like, oh, you've tried it once, why not do it again with me? Because, I mean, obviously, most times, if you have sex with a sexual person once, they're like, well, you've done it once, you can do it again. That's their attitude, a lot of them. In my years of dating or being in relationships, should I say, with heterosexuals, that's kind of that attitude. So it's a bit sad attitude, but it's the way it is. So it's kind of like Eddie, I think, is one of the very exceptions to the rule. I mean, he's very he does want to like establish boundaries with his girlfriend and everything like that. And so, you know, occasionally it might work, but you know, overall, I just think proceed with huge caution. And I absolutely totally agree with you, though. You've got to set boundaries. You need to set boundaries. It's in my book, actually. Asexual Guide to Sex is all about, you know, when someone says, you know, when someone says about having boundaries, what does that actually mean? And, you know, some of the people, so the book, Asexual Guide to Sex, is split into different parts. And there's a part where people tell their asexual sex stories and give a little bit of help and guidance. But there's another part that's those who've answered a lot more questions. They've answered like 2 sets of questions, and the second set of questions goes more in depth about boundaries and assertiveness, and it covers boundaries in there. I wish I'd had that book when I was 16, because I didn't have a clue what boundaries were or being assertive. I didn't actually know what being assertive and boundaries was until I did a pattern changing course in 2013. So as an adult, I was never taught that. I was never taught about boundaries or being assertive or anything like that throughout my whole childhood and school, college, nothing. Do you know what I mean? I didn't know about them. And I totally 100% agree with you that Ralph, that boundaries have definitely got to be set between sexual partners and asexual. If you're with an asexual who's with a sexual, I'm very boundary driven when I'm in the club, But, you know, some sexuals, they do push your boundaries. And I think when you're married, the problem is if you marry someone who's not genuine, then that's where the problem lies, is you're literally tied to a contract with them of marriage that's hard to get out of. So I think that's the danger if you get with the person that's not actually who they appear to be. You know, I mean, for me personally, I won't want to risk that again. I mean, it's really weird because from a romantic point of view, I like the idea of marriage. From the romantic, like being with one person forever, totally devoted to your life to them. You know, you're kind of theirs and they're yours. And I like all that stuff romantically. I really do like the idea of marriage in a romantic capacity sense, which might sound a bit odd because I've just said about marriage not being great. So that type of the security of it, or that type of thing, I like that. It's all that ideology. But the ideology and the reality is very, very, very different. I mean, I've been in 2 long-term serious relationships. I was living with them. I wasn't happy, you know, and they change. These people change. If you love each other, you should also respect each other, such a shame some people don't adhere to this. Yes, I agree, Ralph. You should respect each other. But I think it's all about communication and talking up front. I really do. But you know, like I said, I mean, the guy I was with for 8.5 years, knew him 8 months before I ever got with him as a friend, and then he changed. And when I got into a relationship with him, and I always thought he'd go back to being the nice person. Well, 'cause when we first got together, he was really nice, and it doesn't last long. And my brain just automatically think, you know, he's going to be the guy I fell in love with at the beginning. You know, I don't even like saying those words to do with him. You know, he's going to be that guy, and he never was. I was just deluding myself for absolute years because I'm a person that doesn't tend to quit on things. I tend to keep going. Sometimes you just have to like stop doing something if it doesn't work, and then realize to cut your losses and put it down to a learning experience and leave sooner rather than later. But with me, because I'm so determined to make a success of everything, I think it's good for yourself if you rely on yourself, like with me with business, like making a success. But there's certain things, like I got rid of a load of domains last year that I wasn't really using. You know, there's at least one more I can get rid of, if not more, because there's ones that I'm using now, new ones, and I don't need the old ones. I'm not really doing anything. I'm not really doing any business stuff with them. Not the asexual ones, obviously. Asexuality is like my main niche. But some of the other stuff I was doing, you know, I've still got the Facebook page and Twitter accounts for most of them though, because well, all of them apart from one Facebook page, I changed the name to a different domain because, you know, I get more business through Twitter and Facebook for those names. So I did the websites. I thought, what's point in paying for those websites? No point. So you know what I mean. So yeah, so I just stopped having the websites. It's just costing me money, which is I don't need to spend. I don't know how I got talking about websites when I'm talking about marriage, but never mind. But I was trying to say that if you're in a relationship with yourself and you're like really like driven and everything, and you know trying to make a go of things, but I think you do have to realize sometimes as well when things aren't working, and you have to just like put it down to a learning curve and change what you're doing and move on. Otherwise, you just get the same result. Like, definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. So we kind of have to change sometimes. And you know, with the guy I was with 8.5 years, you know, part of why I stayed with him is because I always thought he was going to change back. Always in my head, it's like, oh, he's got to go back to the way he was. You know, seriously, he was so sweet and lovely and kind to me, and like I thought he was my soulmate, and it just never went back like that. And the other thing was, I honestly thought I couldn't get another guy to be with me without having much sex, because sometimes we'd go 2 or 3 months without it. And that's another major reason why I stay with him, which it sounds really stupid, but you know, it's because I didn't realize I was asexual back then. I honestly thought no one else was going to want me in a relationship, and at that time I needed to be in a relationship. You know, I hadn't been without one since I was a teenager, basically. And so it was kind of like I thought I'm never going to get a guy like this who will go 2 or 3 months without having sex with me. This is great. And he was different type of person. He was really kind, gentle, caring, nice when he was doing the sex stuff. It was very bizarre. Completely opposite of the rest of the time when, you know, I was worried if I was going to get my face hurt, which I didn't, but I was, you know, pinned against wardrobes and fridges and stuff like that, and bad stuff. So yeah, so you know, I don't want to get into a relationship with a guy like that again. But you know what I mean? But someone who can change so much from, you know, like, because imagine I married him. Imagine I was friends with him 8 months or whatever and then got married to him. And just imagine what that life had been like. I'd have been in hell. I was in hell as it was. But just imagine now if I was still married to him. It would be disgusting. Do you know what I mean? Because people can change. People can change. Like I said, when it was sexual wise, he was actually really good like that. It was the rest of the stuff he wasn't. So that is a really bizarre thing. I'm glad though that he was good sexually. I didn't, you know, I wasn't abused sexually at all by him. The opposite. He's very good like that. I'm really glad I had that experience. I can say that as an asexual person, because I don't think many people can say that, you know. But he was horrible the rest of the time. I mean, you didn't know where you're going to get your head, you know, you didn't know where you're going to get physically threatened or shouted at or screamed at in the street or whatever. It's just horrible. I never want to be in that situation again. I'd rather be single forever. Someone's in chat. Can you give me some advice? Marlene, can you give me some advice? I might enter a relationship with a guy when he gets back to the UK in a few months, but I was wondering if and how I should tell him that I think I might be ace. You've just got to tell him outright. You have to tell him outright that you're asexual, that you're not interested in having sex if you're an asexual that's not interested in having sex. So when you say he gets back to UK, I'm guessing that he's definitely resident in the UK, yes? If he's, first of all, if he's resident in the UK, you're in the UK, that's obviously a good thing. But, you know, you need to know as well if he's going to go, you need to know if he's going to keep going backwards and forwards or if he's staying in the UK. Because obviously if you want to settle down in the UK in a relationship and this guy's going backwards and forwards traveling, that's not going to really suit you. And also if he's a foreign guy who comes back and forwards on a temporary visa to the UK, you don't want to be getting into a relationship really with someone like that might want to marry you for a visa. So, but if it's a guy who's born in the UK or got residency, been here 5 years or more, basically, and actually got permission in law, you know, a proper visa, residency visa to stay here, because some guys that have been here, foreign guys that have been here over 5 years, they still haven't applied for residency. So, you know, if it's a guy that's UK born or got UK residency, then, you know, that's fine. But I think, you know, you do need to be perfectly upfront, open and honest about him and tell him that you are asexual. And you shouldn't wait for him. Do not wait for any person, guy, to come back to the UK, because it might never happen. And you don't want to be putting your life on hold for this guy. Do not put your life on hold for any guy. Move on. Try and find someone else. If he comes back to the UK, he comes back to you. Okay. But do you know what I mean? You never want to be holding it, but you should just tell him up front. Marlene, what type of ace are you? I'm the foreigner here, ha. We're both at uni in the UK. And he's British. The problem is I'm not even completely sure if I'm asexual. Okay, so you're the foreigner. Okay, we're both at uni in the UK and he's British. Okay. The problem is I'm not even completely sure if I'm asexual. Okay, well, asexuality, I mean, I would say research asexuality. I mean, asexuality is a sexual orientation that's a lack of sexual attraction. So that means you don't get the need, urge, or want for partnered sexual intercourse. Like, you don't look at a guy and think, I want sex with him. That's in general what it means. But some people on the asexuality is a spectrum. So some people are on the more sexual end of the asexual spectrum. For example, a grey asexual. And a grey asexual is someone who experiences sexual attraction under limited, rare, or specific circumstances, or who experiences it but not enough to want to act on it, usually. You see, I have grey areas, but I'm not textbook grey A. So, I mean, if you're not sure if you're asexual, it's best to do your research and find out if you think you are. But I mean, if you get on well with this guy, if he's a friend, which he should be if you're thinking about getting into a relationship, then I think you need to have a conversation just as a friend with him before you even get into a relationship. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously, if you're at uni together, then you must be able to talk to him as a friend. If you can't talk to him openly and honestly as a friend, it's not going to bode very well for a relationship. So you need to be completely honest, open and upfront with him and say, thank you, yeah, I know I'm not particularly interested in sex. So tell him that then. Tell him that you might be asexual, you're still discovering about it, and you're not really interested in sex for whatever reason. And then see his reaction, because some guys, they can't live without sex, some can. But you need to be upfront, open and honest, and not waste your time. Do you know what I mean? The longer you leave telling him, the more time you're wasting to find the right guy who can live with you out of sex by not saying anything to this guy, because it sounds like you really want to be with this guy. So you shouldn't hold on for him. I mean, obviously, if he's just on a week's holiday, that's a bit different, but do you know what I mean? You should still be looking around for other people as well, not just this one specific guy, because until this guy's proven to you that he's worthy of being in a relationship with you anyway, then you should still be looking around for other people, not just pinning all your hopes on one person. And then you should, bring it into conversation that I've been, maybe you could say, oh, I saw a show about asexuality and it sounded a bit like me. I'm not sure if I am or not, but I know I'm not interested in sex really, and see what he says. And so I'm thinking maybe I'm asexual and see what he says. But if there's a difference, some guys can accept that about you as a friend, but get into a relationship with you, they wouldn't be able to accept it because they need sex. Do you see what I mean? So it's just to be best to be upfront and honest and say to him the truth. That I'm interested in first of all, if you're not actually in a relationship, you could just tell him and see what his reaction is. And then once you get to the stage of telling him you're interested in a relationship specifically with him, you need to be having that conversation about, could you live without sex in a relationship? Because I'm not interested in that. And if he can't, you need to move on to someone else. I know it might sound a bit clinical, but that's what you have to do in life. Keep moving on until you find the right guy, because there's thousands of guys that aren't going to be the right guy for you, and you only need to find one. But, it's kind of like finding a needle in a haystack sometimes. So, but some guys, there are a few that can live without sex with asexuals. But obviously you can have that, if you don't like sex, you have to ask yourself all the self-analysis questions, like what type of sex acts do you like to do, if you like to do any of them. So, for example, some sexuals, they can live without intercourse, but they require you to, for example, I'm going to be sexually I'm going to sexually express stuff now. So if there's any sex repulsed asexuals watching right now, if they want to block their ears or like switch off for a bit or not listen to me, I understand that. But basically, obviously, if you're going to get into a relationship with a sexual, you need to find out your own boundaries and things that you would like to do and not do. So, for example, some sexuals can live without the intercourse, but they want you to masturbate them, for example. They might want you to have anal sex or oral sex with them. So you have to work out for yourself, however you can. Obviously, you might not be able to work it all out. You might, but try to find out what you'd be prepared to do and not to do. If it's a case of you don't like sex, you don't like you don't like sexual intercourse, you don't like anal sex, oral sex, and you don't want to masturbate the guy, then really you've got to be with a guy who can masturbate himself, or, if you're monogamous, live in a monogamous relationship without sex with you. And if he can't do that, then it's from a relationship point of view and move on to the next person and keep looking. Do you know what I mean? Because you don't want to end up in a relationship that's incompatible for you both and you both be unhappy. I mean, I've had sexuals approach me on this channel, some of which are married to asexuals, and as much as I listen to asexuals and I'm for asexuals and I'm rooting for asexuals and I stick up for asexuals and I understand asexual point of view, I have to sometimes answer questions from sexuals. And some sexuals have got married to asexuals, not realizing they're asexual, and they're unhappy because they want the sex and they can't get it from their partner, and they feel like I had one guy who came in private message a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, oh, I'm married to an asexual. I didn't realize she was asexual when we got married, or she didn't realize. And I haven't had sex for like 12 years, and I feel like rejected and depressed over it, and while I just, obviously from an asexual point of view, I think, he's lucky to have her, because he told me how wonderful personality she is and beautiful and everything like that. So he obviously, for him, sex is more important, that he gets the sex, than the fact she's a beautiful, intelligent woman. Do you know what I mean? which is a bit sad from an asexual point of view, but I have to deal with the facts and the things that people say to me. So I'd always say, you know, that you need to be upfront, honest with the person. You've got less to lose. The quicker you tell that person, the less you've got to lose. Because the more longer you leave it, the more you get emotionally connected to them, the more it'll hurt to pull yourself away from the person. So it's always best, you know, if I go on a date, first date, I'm always telling the guy I'm asexual, or even before we have a first date, that I'm asexual. Obviously, it's harder if you don't know if you are, but, you know, if you're not particularly interested in sex, I mean, the full definition of asexuality is the lack of sexual attraction and or little to no interest in sexual activities. So the fact that you're not particularly interested in sex, I'm guessing that you fall on the asexual spectrum somewhere. Do you know what I mean? You might be fully asexual, you know, but I think asexuality is a journey of discovery. There's lots of different nuances to it. And I just think you have to be honest with them and say, you know, I think I might be asexual. I'm not interested in sex. I am interested in a relationship with you, and I don't know if you could be in a relationship with me without sex. Do you know what I mean? So, or, you know, even if you don't want to say you're in an interested relationship with him, you should say that you're not interested in sex and couldn't have that in a relationship, and see how he reacts to it, you know, without making it about specifically him if you want to go down that route. But I just know that as soon as you get it out in the open, you can move on if he's the wrong guy and get less hurt. Like, I get lots of asexuals coming in my group going, oh, I really like this guy. I haven't told him I'm asexual yet. I don't know when to tell him. And it's like, just tell him up front, because then it's less painful. You have the more longer you leave it, the more you become emotionally bonded to the person, the harder it's going to be, and the more it's going to hurt you emotionally to detach from that person if they can't live without sex, which a lot of them can't, sadly. Not every one of them, but a lot of them can't. Do you know what I mean? So I hope that's helped you, Marlene. I hope so. Anyway, do you know what I mean? So yeah, you just need to be very open and honest about it. And obviously, if you're starting a relationship and he's British and you're the foreigner, like, how's that going to work? Are you going to get a job in the UK and stay here, or are you going to go back to your own country? So that's another thing. Because again, personally, I wouldn't want to start a relationship with someone unless I knew that I had longevity going down the line. Do you know what I mean? So I would take that into consideration as well. I mean, the good thing about the guy I met up with the other day, I mean, he hasn't had sex because he doesn't believe in sex before marriage. He doesn't. And he said that he didn't get a girlfriend while he was in uni because he knew that he wasn't going to stay in the area the university was. He was going to get work elsewhere. So he didn't think it was fair to get with a girl and basically break her heart when he had to move away. So, you know, he's kind of like been moving around, so he's quite settled in my city at the moment. But I even said to him, I said, you know, are you staying in the city then, like the city, because he's been in the UK for 3 years. And he came to my city in 2018, and he said, yeah, I'll probably be here for another 6 years at least, unless I'm deported back to my country, because I've got a job here. But if the manager decides to if the work stops, or the manager decides to retire or whatever, or move somewhere else, like, he'll be in line for the management job, and he said it's too much responsibility. He feels he couldn't do it. It's too hard. So, you know, in that situation, he'd have to look for other work, which could take him anywhere in the country, basically. And so I thought, from that point of view, he's not a good guy to be in a relationship with anyway, because if a woman does get married to him, I told him I don't like marriage anyway. I'm not a marriage person, but if someone does get married to him, can you imagine the woman's kind of got to move around with him? Do you know what I mean? That's what I mean. Some people, they expect a lot. When you get married, it's kind of like, you've got to think of your future as well as theirs. Like, you know, if that person's going to expect you to move around with them all the time for their work, where does that leave you with your work? Especially if you're a career-minded person. I'm very career-minded. Like, I like the fact I'm single at the moment, can move where the heck I want if I really want. But I love living here. It's my favourite place to live. But if I wasn't living here, I'd live in London. I've got lots of business opportunities in London. But being single means I've got the flexibility to move where I damn well want. You know, once I get into a relationship, it's kind of like you're a bit more tied. So, you know, when I was talking to him about it, he goes, oh, unless I'm deported, you know, because if he decides not to be a manager and there's no more work for him, he'll have to go back to his country. Ralph, bedtime for me. Night, take care. Oh yeah, I'm gonna go now anyway, because I think I've answered everything. Anyway, thank you, Ralph, so much. I just want to say thanks so much for tuning in tonight. Yeah, and obviously if it's triggers that someone's done by accident, then, you know, you've got stuff to work on yourself. Know that it's your problem, own it, and try and help yourself. Like, speak to friends if you need to, therapists if you need to, and just, you know, like, you know, just like really try and work through your issues one by one as best as you possibly can, and talk to whoever's involved if you think it's going to be helpful. If you don't, then try and deal with it yourself as much as possible, and take time out for you, and just say, I feel triggered at the moment, I need to take some time out, rather than going rah 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 at the person when it's not their fault. Anyway, thank you so much, Ralph. Thank you so much, Marlene. Lots and lots of love to you. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks, Ralph, for participating tonight. Really appreciate you. I don't know what you said, Woody, but thank you. What is your IQ? High. My IQ is very high. I know that just from experience. Anyway, until next time, embrace your quirky and each other's. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit that great big thumbs up button if you like this video, and don't forget to subscribe. Hit the bell icons to get notified of every time I go live like that or post a new video. Thanks very much for your question, Marlene. Thanks, Ralph, for taking part, and bye, Woody. Take care, everyone. Lots of love. Night. Bye. Good morning, or wherever you are. Good day.